My question for you, second question, involves Vladimir Putin. He has been, just quite frankly, cocky. He's been going to Crimea. He's been meeting with President Xi of China. And why shouldn't he be? Because not only did the former president, who's now the leading candidate to be the Republican nominee, but his leading challenger have both basically said that they don't really care that much about Ukraine, that it's a territorial dispute. And of course, Trump, as being Trump, said that Putin was savvy to invade Ukraine, that it was a brilliant move. So how can we, and by the way, if he gets away with it, do you think he's going to stop? So simpletons like Matt Gaetz in Congress are saying, I'm not going to invest a single dollar. Well, you know what? If he takes over Ukraine, you're going to be investing a lot more in terms of blood and treasure when we have to defend the Baltics. So how can we have such irresponsible talk about our national security? Ronald Reagan must be rolling in his grave from the two leading Republican candidates. I know DeSantis has tried to walk it back, but it's too late.
Yeah, well, I mean, Reagan, I just was at an event to honor Ronald Reagan's speech that he gave before the evangelicals, where he talked about the evil empire, and he called out the Soviet Union as evil. And it was the first time that he actually used moral terms to describe the Soviet regime. And it made some people in the press corps a little, clutch the pearls, pull out the smelling salts, because they couldn't handle the president actually using moral terms to describe the evilness that was the Soviet Union. Because you're talking about tens of millions of people murdered, starved, beaten.
Oh, we agree. We agree.
Yeah. So I think when you look at which party is willing to actually describe the CCP and what Xi is doing, and also with Putin, there's no question that conservatives absolutely understand that risk. I think the other thing about Reagan was that he said we need peace through strength. So I think that you shouldn't have just a focus on one or the other. And arguably, I think there were some Republicans who were too focused on the strength aspect of it, and they were forgetting the peace aspect of it. That was the beauty of Ronald Reagan, was that he walked that line of both. So I think that there's a way to be clear-eyed and say, yeah, what Vladimir Putin has done is evil. I think the International Criminal Court, they issued a warrant for his arrest. It's not going to go anywhere. It's meaningless. And I think it actually was weakness to do that, because it's just going to be ignored and it looks totally impotent. There's no legal ramifications because Russia's not party to that treaty at all. So it's not going to have any impact. So it makes the West look weak. But at the same time, I think that, again, look, I know you and I disagree about Trump and Russia, because the concrete steps that Trump took against Russia, I think, prevented. It's the only presidential term since George W. Bush where Russia did not invade some form of the former Eastern blocs. You had Georgia under George W. Bush, you had Crimea under Obama, and now you have the rest of Ukraine under this president. So I think it's the reverse. I think that Trump and also DeSantis believe in peace through strength, but you kind of want to go back to that old frame of the George W. Bush neocon lens, and I think that's problematic.
Well, that was a heck of a speech, but the question was, in terms of our policy, and poor Reagan must be rolling in his grave, listening to Trump and DeSantis. And by the way, all I can say is when Trump was elected, Putin partied. It was the happiest day of his life. Now, was there any proof of collusion? No. But certainly he was pulling for Trump. He always was. We've been through on this show before why Trump is Putin's puppet, so we're not going to get into that again. But what I've said, again, is that this is a typical thing. He calls him savvy. He say it was brilliant to invade. And then Ron DeSantis, being the mini-me, once again not criticizing, says, oh yeah, it's a territorial dispute. So this is, again, it shows you how far, in terms of foreign policy, the Republican Party has fallen and why Putin has never felt more emboldened. And again, I'm worried because he doesn't have to win in 22 or 23. He doesn't have to win in 24. He's counting on Americans having a short attention span, which we do, and he's counting on Republican resistance growing. And I hate to say it, but there's a good chance he's going to be proven right on both counts.
Well, I think we can go back and forth on this because, I mean, Ron DeSantis, he's a former Navy JAG, and he understands military intelligence. He's no wimp.
I know.
I don't
so
think
disappointing.
I don't think he underestimates Putin or what he's doing. I think in some respects he's actually right-sizing who Putin is, in the sense that Putin's military is so decrepit. I mean, he's a joke. So I think it's actually good to belittle him.
But that's not the question. The question is somebody. Go ahead.
I mean, he's by basically kissing the ring of China. Putin is basically going to become a vassal state of China. So if anything, this has actually made him even more weak, because now he's having to beg to someone, a bigger superpower. So all around, I think that the real threat here is China. And I think that Ron DeSantis understands that. And so does Trump. I mean, Trump, of all Republicans in recent years, has been the strongest voice against China. And China, if Russia pulls out a victory against the Ukraine, it will be because of China and because of weakness. And I will give Dave, mark this, I'm giving some credit to the Biden administration in some respects for keeping some strong policies against China, not even close to what I would like in terms of even our energy policy. But I think that they have kept some things in place from the Trump administration. They need to go further. But that is the real problem as it relates to Russia and Ukraine, is if China comes in and swoops in. And so that's where Biden needs to be stronger.
Well, again, all I can say is, talk is one thing, walk is another. And all I hear from Trump supporters is, oh, he was so tough on China. China has never been more emboldened than they were under the Trump administration, because they knew he was weak. He did these tariffs, which were just taxes on working people. That's all they were. And then he had to bail out farmers with billions of taxpayer money that was wasted. China was more aggressive in the China Sea than ever. The South China Sea, they were more aggressive all over. They were more restrictive at home. So China, and again, Russia, have never been more cocky than they were under Donald Trump. So again, you can talk about how all these policies were so tough, but the behavior is a better indicator than the so-called tough policies. But as usual, we will have to agree to respectfully disagree, but it's always respectful. And my name is, once again, is David Spencer. It's always wonderful to have you on Practically Political, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. We'll see you.